Welcome to the podcast. My name is Daniel King, and today I have a special guest with me from the nation of Afghanistan. Thank you for joining me.
Hello, Mr. Daniel King. My name is Tayyip Ghazniwal. My friends call me T, and it's been a pleasure to be on this podcast.
Well, thank you so much for being here with me. My family has loved Afghanistan for many years. My grandparents actually worked in Afghanistan back in the 1950s, and my mother was born in Kabul, Afghanistan. Wow. And so she has grown up loving Afghanistan. She actually lived there until she was 8 years old. And when I was a kid, I remember my mom used to talk about Afghanistan all the time. We would pray for the people of Afghanistan every single day. We would be praying for Afghanistan. Even back then, people didn't even know where Afghanistan was on the map. But we knew because my mom loved Afghanistan so much. And then 12 years ago, my father and mother moved to the nation of Afghanistan and began to work there. And one of the things that they did was to start a school. And you actually were at the school. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes, it was quite a big pleasure to work with Mr. and Mrs. King, who were your parents. They had founded the school. And it was a school that gave me a world of new opportunities. As a young teenager who was trying to pursue education, with all the other doors being locked, Mr. King was one of the divine gifts that I received in Afghanistan with his family. By giving me a job opportunity as a teacher, I was able to serve and help people while simultaneously helping myself by pursuing my gift of education. And that was through an online medium. So I'm very thankful to have been gifted that opportunity to help people from individuals with ADHD to just normal everyday Afghans that were just wanting and loved the gift of education and just wanted to be a part of that movement, the Bahar movement.
How did you originally meet my parents?
I was part of an American school funded by USAID in Kabul, Afghanistan, by the name of the International School of Kabul, and the staff was predominantly foreigners. And Mr. and Mrs. King were one of the parents of a teacher by the name of
David King was a teacher there.
Yes.
And then he actually married a girl who was an art teacher at the school. Yes. Her name is Leslie. And so now David and Leslie live in Cairo, Egypt, and they teach at a school there.
Yes, and I was very surprised, but very happy for the two of them because they were just an amazing match. Very good people. Miss Leslie is an amazing human being, and so is Mr. David King. A great.
I can see he was a great friend of yours. Okay, so my parents were there in Afghanistan. They had this school. Many different students came to the school, and you were one of the teachers. My mother actually died and went to heaven in April. And so she was loved by many of the Afghan people. What are some memories that you have of my mother? How did she impact your life?
Well, first of all, Mrs. King was an amazing human being, and I know personally in my heart that she's in heaven. And one of my great memories from Mrs. King is when, at the end of the school days, when all the students would be gathered in the hallway, Mrs. King would help say the Bahar motto, which was Bahar is our school, Bahar is a new beginning, Bahar is excellent, and Bahar is fun. And she would say it in a huge amount of energy every single time, and we would feel just welcomed around her. Just whenever I needed her help with transferring money from my academic work or anything along those lines, or buying textbooks online, she was always there to help and serve my people and just humanity in general. And I feel like us here coming to the States has been Mr. King's way of just appreciating and honoring Mrs. King's passing and her love for my people. And so Mrs. King, she might not know it, but just me being here in the States is because of her. And I truly did love her from the bottom of my heart, and I know she is in peace and she's in heaven right now.
Yeah, my mother was a great woman. I think everything that I know came because of her love for God and her love for people, and then her love for me as a son. And I was so proud of both of my parents working in Afghanistan, sometimes very dangerous situations, but my mom and dad were there because they loved the people of Afghanistan. So in August, a great tragedy happened in Afghanistan.
Yes.
The Taliban government began to take over Afghanistan, and then on August 15th, they officially took over the city of Kabul. And because of the Taliban strictness, a lot of people wanted to get out of Afghanistan.
Yes, sir.
And so tell me a little bit about why people were maybe scared of the Taliban, why they didn't want to stay there in Afghanistan under the Taliban.
This was not the first time the Taliban had taken control over Afghanistan. This was an occurrence that happened within 2 decades. Two decades ago, Taliban had come, and now it was just there coming again. And so people had seen the principles that they believed in. They're very tyrannical individuals that follow extremely conservative laws in the name of their faith. And I personally do not believe that they're people of their faith, because I am personally a Muslim, and the principles that they follow is not in accordance to the Muslim faith. So things that they would do is just like prevent women from pursuing education. Just the day-to-day free will was taken away basically from people, because people had to follow very strict rules on a daily basis, religious rules, or just some random social norms, like not being able to even interact with people of the other gender, women not being allowed to go to work, things that were just absolutely out of the ordinary, and people did not see their lives continuing in this path, because they had realized what their rights are, and they're willing to fight for them. So everybody wanted to get out of the country until this place was safe once again.
And so you wanted to escape from Afghanistan. I think that the fall of Afghanistan happened very quickly. Like, no one thought that the Taliban would take over so quickly. Certainly here in the United States, yes. Everyone thought that the Taliban maybe would fight in the southern provinces, mm-hmm. But when they began to take over Kabul, suddenly everyone became very concerned, and everyone saw on the news there were airplanes taking off, and people were actually hanging on to the outside of the airplane and fall off the airplane, mm-hmm. And thousands of people rushed the airport just trying to get on any airplane in order to leave, and really the whole situation was extremely chaotic. A great tragedy. Many people were hurt, and some people were even killed. And you were there right in the middle of it. Tell me about what happened.
So 3 weeks before the actual coming of the Taliban, we saw it happening. It was becoming a reality on a daily basis. We saw it becoming a reality 2 years ago, but we never saw it as in actually happening. We had hope. But 3 weeks before the 31st of August, the fall of the Afghan government, provinces started falling on a daily basis. And every single day we heard another province had fallen, And before we knew, within 3 weeks, the capital was in risk of falling to the terrorists. And we were hopeful that our government would make a last effort to protect our people and the government, but that's not what happened. They surrendered the entire country on the 31st of August. And that was the most difficult day of our lives, because we saw our country, a country that we had fought for the peace of, for the last 2 decades, for a new coming of our country, for peace in our country. We saw it fall. As a matter of fact, I was part of a protest that I was leading just a week before the falling of Kabul, where I led 20,000 people screaming and chanting just for a better Afghanistan, just hail Afghanistan, or God help Afghanistan. And it was my way of just fighting for my country when nobody else believed in my country. It did not make a difference. Within a week, my country had fallen. We had terrorists on our doorstep, and they were specifically threatening multiple individuals that had worked with foreigners, myself included. And I was fortunate enough to get out of the country, and I tried various ways, but all my personal mediums of trying to get out of Afghanistan, such as applying for visas and scholarships online, none of them were fruitful. And so the only medium which was left was my faith, and I am a person of faith. I believe in God. And that I just sat down, I put my prayer mat on the ground, and I prayed towards God, like, God, hey, I'm sorry I'm not the best of your creations. I know I need your help once in a while, and today is one of those days. I request that you use your divine powers to help bring me out of this country, because I believe that you are great, and if you believe my purpose out of this country, so I can serve your people out of here and to become a better version of myself and eventually come back in this country and serve my people, please help me get out. And within the next day or so, I got a call from Mr. Robert King, your father. And he informed me that there's a 1 in a million chance, basically, that we're able to evacuate Afghans from the Kabul airport. And he told me to get my stuff packed up and head towards the airport. And so the next morning at 7 o'clock, I got another phone call from Mr. King, and he said, head towards the airport. There's other fellow friends of ours there from this institution, from Bahar. So I get down from the car, it's a half an hour ride to the airport, and I see 10,000 people in line, stuck together, and there wasn't even room to get in line. Everybody was unable to sit down, move around, do whatever. And I saw a familiar face in this, and so it was one of our fellow teachers. And so we decided to believe that God has our purpose beyond this area. And there's difficulties and challenges here, but we can push through. So there was 3 checkpoints. The first 2 checkpoints being terrorist checkpoints, and the third being a international forces, at that point British forces checkpoint. So it took us 2 days, 2 full days, 48 hours, standing, getting beat, getting pushed around, getting hit, getting whipped, but we still believed. We pushed through the first checkpoint within 12 hours or so. Next checkpoint, again, behind 5,000 people. Another 24 hours or so within the second checkpoint. And the third checkpoint took us like 8-10 hours. This in a cramped up area the size of a shipping container, stuffed in 200 people basically. All of us trying to just tell the soldiers to help us get out. And we just told to wait. And so we waited and we sat down. And we were continuing to believe. And eventually Mr. King and Mrs. King, Miss Esther King, who is your sister, was able to get in touch with individuals inside the airport, and they were able to send us a team of 5 SEALs and help evacuate us. And we did not have papers. We did not have anything that made us a proper candidate to get out of the country. But God's purpose for us was beyond our country at that point in time. And so we believed, and once again we believed. And we got past the checkpoints, we stood in line behind 1,000 people to get on a plane. We got on a plane for a cargo plane where 600 people were stuffed inside the cargo plane, but we still, with the difficulties, we still believed. We still got through. And we got a flight to Qatar, Germany, to Qatar. And then from Qatar, we were at Qatar for overnight. Unfortunately, there was no beds available for me and my friends, but we slept on the ground. I slept on concrete, but the fact that I was safe and that there was a process underway, I believed, and we all believed. We still kept pushing. Next morning, we got a flight to Germany. We stayed in Germany for 8 days, Kaiserslautern, Germany, where there was an American army base. Unfortunately, the conditions there weren't the best, especially when it came to food and just facilities that were available there. I personally lost 8 pounds within 8 days, but I'm glad that they helped.
Because the food was not sufficient.
Yeah, they did not give us food. They starved us, to keep it candid.
And on the cargo plane, there's just open. There's no seats.
No seats whatsoever. Just like I mentioned, it's just a cargo plane for moving vehicles and tanks and stuff. So just stuffed in us inside a cargo plane with 600 people. But we're refugees. We understood that that's a part of the process, I guess. And so after Germany, which took 8 days, eventually we were able to get out of Germany. Then we got a flight to Washington, D.C., which is a transit flight. And from D.C. we got to New Mexico to another flight where we stayed in a refugee base.
And you went to Fort Bliss,
yes,
there in New Mexico, right
Bliss.
With El Paso and New Mexico border. And what's really interesting is that my family had actually lived in El Paso for 20 years. And my sister Melody was there, and she greeted you at the refugee camp there, yes, in New Mexico. And so it's really amazing. My father and I were here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and we were on the phone trying to do everything we could to help you and the yes, other teachers from the school get out, and even some of the students. We knew yes, that your lives were potentially in danger. And so my father was calling every person he knew, mm-hmm, trying to make contacts with the United States State Department, with the different entities within the State Department. My sister Esther is actually running for Congress in the 17th District of Illinois. And so because she's running for Congress, she knows lots of politicians.
Yes.
And so she was on the phone talking to various senators and Congress people, asking them, what can you do to help these Afghans? These are friends of my family. Mm-hmm. Their lives are in danger. If they stay there, they're going to be killed. And my sister Esther is also in the military reserves, the Army Reserves.
Yes.
And so she was actually had some friends that were military there at the airport in Kabul, and was able to call them, and we were doing everything we could to help you. But Like the first day, nothing worked. Second day, nothing worked. By the third day, we were desperate. We also were praying and saying, God, help us. Help these Afghans that my mother cared so much about. And we really think that it is a huge miracle that God helped you to rescue you. And it is because God has a purpose and a plan for your life that's greater than yourself, that, you know, God has something great for you to do in life. And I think it's just so traumatic what everyone who got out went through. Like, what were you feeling in the midst of that? What was going through your head?
This is an interesting question, and the answer, the initial answer would be, I was feeling that there is hope for me to get to a level of safety, and a hope for my friends and my family members, that there was still hope within me. But the most overwhelming feeling was fear. You see, fear, Mr. Daniel King, fear is very powerful. It drives us for survival, but it also silences emotions. See, we saw people get killed in front of us. We were shot at. We were beaten. We felt no pain. At that point in time, we did not feel any mental impact. We were not psychologically impacted immediately. We did not break down. We had one goal, which was to get freedom. So fear pushed us. Fear motivated us. Fear silenced everything. We didn't care about the people beside us at that point in time. We cared about our own lives at that point in time. It just pushed us to a biological instinct which reminds you to focus on yourself and survive no matter what. It was very, very upsetting. It was. It took a while for me to process all of this when I got to safety. That it's okay to not be afraid anymore, that I was safe. That's the biggest gift that America has given me.
I'm very grateful that America is welcoming so many Afghans with open arms. There are some here that maybe are scared of people from another culture or another religion, even different language group. But here in Oklahoma, the governor has opened his arms and invited refugees to come. And so here in Tulsa, there are scheduled to be 800 Afghan refugees who will be living here in Tulsa. And our family is delighted because we used to have to travel all the way across the world to meet Afghans. Now we can have good Afghan food right here in Tulsa because God has brought Afghans who can cook Afghan food to us. You know, and so we're super delighted. And so far, I think Oklahoma has really welcomed Afghan refugees. How have you been received since you arrived here in America?
I have been received with open arms. I love the American people. I love them, truly. People of Tulsa, Oklahoma in general, but specifically Tulsa, have been very, very, very welcoming. We've felt like we're safe, that we're with family. They've checked up on us. They've made sure that every one of our needs are met. If it's psychological, if it's physical, or just necessary food, Wi-Fi, it's the smallest things like that. They've made sure that we are taken care of. They've also let us know that they can be a listening ear. If they need help, if we need help to process something, they will help us work through that. They've welcomed us to events. They've welcomed us to their culture, and have also made us feel like proud of our own culture. Like we have never felt like we were unwelcomed. We've never felt like we were different. We've just felt like we were special in a positive light. That we were friends from afar, brothers and sisters from afar, that were just back home. That we were welcomed. And as soon as we met people from different churches, different organizations, and each and every single one of them played a huge role. If it was praying for us, if it was monetary assistance, if it was just remembering us in their thoughts, that all mattered. We felt safe here. We felt welcomed.
So what comes next for you? Now you're here. What are your hopes and your plans, your dreams for the future?
After coming to America and going through all of this, this is a very difficult journey in my life. I've realized my purpose in life. With my set of unique skills, I feel like God has a huge purpose for me. It's currently here in the States, but it is eventually back home. 20 years from now, 25 years from now, as me and you were discussing this afternoon, it is to go back home.
You want to go back to Afghanistan?
Yes.
Why do you want to go back?
Because I believe that the gift of education, the gift that was passed on to me, was a gift that completely transformed my life in a better light. I want to go back home and build my own system of schools and universities and pass on this light, this fire of education to other individuals, my people. There's talent back in Afghanistan. There is. People still love their country. While our flag might have been taken down, it still flies high in our hearts. We are Afghans. We are proud people. We love our country. And I believe we have a great future in hand. While today many people might not believe in this dream of mine, I assure you, Mr. Daniel King, there is hope for Afghanistan. And there's people like me that are going to change the country, bring it to a positive direction. And a big part of it is giving the people the gift of education. It will make them realize what they truly are, how much their value is, and how they can, as Afghans, and then as human beings, completely transform the world.
Well, as an American, I want to welcome you with open arms to our nation. We are happy that you are here, and I believe that God will do great things in your life. God has a great plan for your life. And I also share your dream for a peaceful Afghanistan. For many years, our family has prayed for there to be peace in Afghanistan. And for the last 40 years, every day there has been very little peace. But someday, I believe there will be peace in Afghanistan. And the Afghan people will be great in the eyes of the world. And so I'm so delighted that you're here. Thank you.
It's been an honor.
For being with me on this podcast. And what would you say to Americans who maybe would meet an Afghan or see an Afghan at the store? What would you say to them that they should do to welcome Afghans?
Fellow Americans and everybody else who's listening to this podcast, I, as an Afghan, am one of your brothers, a long-lost brother, and there's your long-lost brothers and sisters that have come across the world in hopes that you guys will assist them and help them to attain a level of safety and peace. Welcome them. Give them a hug. Make sure that they are reminded that they're safe here and that you love them. We have had a very difficult life for the last 40 years, and we're hoping the next 40 is going to be a peaceful one, a one with smiles, a one with warmth of family and care. Each one of you can make this difference in their hearts and their lives. Be that difference for that person. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being with me. It's great to have you here.
Thank you, Mr. King.
Daniel King is on a mission to save 1 million souls a year, but he can't do it alone. Would you consider sowing a financial seed today? To give, please visit www.kingministries.com.